How you doing? Dean's bisexual. If your first reaction to this video is something along the lines of, Dean isn't gay, I'd like to kindly point out to you that you have a fundamental misunderstanding of what bisexuality is. I'm betting this video isn't going to be the one that clears that up particularly well for you, so if you need, I suggest you look into one. But for those of you curious as to why many people see Dean as bisexual, then this video is for you. If you aren't, well, thank you for coming, but this probably isn't where you want to be. And if you're a homophobe, well, feel free to skip to the comments section and say something spiteful that we'll all laugh at, so chew. That being said, in all fairness, canonically, Dean is not confirmed, only possibly implied bisexual. And implied in a lot of ways that probably don't actually register to a straight person right off the bat. Because if hetero Dave over there says, I don't swing that way, he really does mean it. But if closeted bisexual Dan over there says, I don't swing that way, he's covering. Which brings us to basically one of the core problems with this debate. We see ourselves in the characters, or more importantly, we can only view their actions through the lens of our own experiences. So ardently heterosexual watchers are more likely to see Dean as straight, and queer audiences are going to more likely see him as bisexual. Here's the important kicker. Neither is a wrong interpretation, unless you're using it to be a toxic asshole to people, but this episode isn't to talk about the problems with queer representation or double standards with on-screen romances. I'll probably do one of those too. There's some housekeeping I need to lay out, so let's blast through that so I can just focus on Dean specifically after. First, I want to take a second to clear up the language I'm going to be using. This is painfully obvious to a lot of us, but outside the specific LGBT plus spaces, this is sometimes shocking. We use the word gay for fucking everything. That's pretty gay, or calling people gay for blanket term anyone in that category other than straight. It's just a word that gets thrown around like that. I call myself gay sometimes. I certainly passingly refer to my husband as gay sometimes. I think the words "our spectacular whirlwind gay romance" has been used at some point in the last week. My husband and I are both bisexual, and we don't mean that we're gay. We're bisexual. But in pride circles, a lot of people just sort of casually use the word gay. We took it back from being derogatory, gotta get our money's worth, you know? Dean isn't gay. He's not implied to be gay. If you have a headcanon that he is gay, go for it. But the show has never at any point made an effort to portray Dean Winchester as a gay man. The conversations can become a bit convoluted, however, especially when the conversation turns to evidence. Dean is seen in numerous relationships with women, so it doesn't have to be discussed. It is well established that Dean likes women, obviously. So when people talk about the implications that he is bisexual, liking women is a given, so the discussion becomes about the evidence that he also likes men. Coming into this from an outside perspective, it's just a bunch of people sitting around while watching Supernatural saying, that's so gay, over and over again, while pointing to a bunch of things that point to his bisexuality. It sometimes can seem like people are only focusing on evidence that Dean is into dudes. But again, those things are only discussed especially because no one has to prove that he likes women. He does. Liking men does not mean you do not like women. Being bisexual does not mean that you do not like women. Being bisexual doesn't even mean that you like men as much as you like women. You can be bisexual and like women way more consistently than you like men, and you're still bisexual. It's outdated now, but sometimes as an icebreaker, it helps to look at the Kinsey scale. For example, I'm a 3, my husband is just under a 2, and we're both bisexual. Now, why is the Kinsey scale outdated? First off, bisexual is not part gay, part straight. It's an entirely different thing. I think the best way I've heard it described is that we don't say half red, half blue. We say purple, and it's purple whether or not it's more red or more blue. Second, it doesn't take into account something that is misunderstood by a lot of people. Bisexuality is not gender exclusive. Meaning that bisexual has come to mean attracted to the same gender as well as not the same gender. It does take into account the gender spectrum and does not exclude trans or non-binary individuals. But this is to say that your attraction to guys, gals, and non-binary pals doesn't have to be even across the board. You could be a closeted bisexual your entire life, right up until the day you die, never having slept with someone of the same sex as you, and you are still bisexual. You can settle down with someone of your gender, someone of the opposite gender, and you will still be bisexual. Now, why would someone who is bisexual not admit they were bisexual? Otherwise known as the why would they stay in the closet? Let's set aside writers' constraints, or how taboo it is to have queer characters of any types, the further stigma of bisexual characters especially, and the censure, which is bisexual girl on TV okay, bisexual man on TV no way. There are a lot of reasons bisexual people are likely to stay in the closet, oftentimes for even longer than a gay person might. An easy one is just it's so much simpler to mask. Coming out can have a lot of negative consequences. If you're a guy and you like women and men, but one of these things is not only so much easier to act on, but also socially acceptable, you may just decide to ignore men that you think are attractive and focus on women. People decide not to act on attraction all the time. Your friend is married? Yeah, you may think they're attractive, may even develop a crush, but you, hopefully, decide not to act on it. You can do this to avoid conflict with family. You can do this for your own safety. There's a lot of parts of this country where gay shit still isn't smiled upon. I'm excited to see more and more people be comfortable declaring their queer sexualities as it becomes more and more accepted. But you have to remember, Dean was 25 before same-sex marriage was legal anywhere in the United States, and it was only recognized in Massachusetts then. By the time same-sex marriage was legal in the entire country, he was 36. He wasn't raised in a world where dudes in love was welcome. It was pretty taboo. Beyond safety, there is shame. If you're raised with the idea that something is wrong, you're likely to feel an amount of shame for being, as you have been taught, wrong. There is an instinct to try to bury the shameful part of yourself, which, again, is especially achievable when you are bisexual, because you aren't lying about liking women. You do like women, so you just focus on that and ignore the rest. I'd also like to acknowledge that there is a difference between real people and fictional characters that have been offered up for our narrative interpretation. With real people, it is of the utmost importance to take them at their word regarding their sexuality. If they say they are gay, straight, bi, pan, ace, or anything, you have no right to tell them otherwise. But interpretation of fictional characters is expected. It's what you're supposed to do. It's encouraged. Again, Dean is not canonically bisexual, and the interpretation he is straight is valid. And the repeated distaste for people who read him as queer is a hilarious declaration of bigotry that continues to amuse me. But today we'll be looking at the perspective a lot of people come from, and look at the ways Dean Winchester can be read as a closeted bisexual man. Alright, now that housekeeping is out of the way, let's actually look at Dean Winchester. Dean is a very complex and multi-layered character. Let's be perfectly clear here. A lot of this stuff is going to be vibes and tropes. This is, after all, a look at the ways Dean can be perceived as bisexual, as he was never confirmed in the show. But onwards. Dean Winchester. What a strong ladies' man. An honestly problematic womanizer, but we'll leave that for an upcoming video on dubious consent and sexual assault in Supernatural. Dean comes from a complicated background. Unyielding ex-Marine father, dragged all over the country that historically has not been kind to the idea of queer people existing. There were a lot of states in which being queer and not quiet about it could get you killed, and still are some places like that, but rare, thankfully. All in all, Dean had a lot of incentive to stay quiet, or even internalize and repress his sexuality entirely. It tracks with him as we see Dean calmly refuse it with kind of a quip. He is in a high-stress situation where he is well-practiced and trained to not give away his weaknesses.
I got a lot to celebrate. I mean, after all, seeing you two in chains.
You kinky son of a bitch. We don't swing that way.
Say, why don't you get out of the car and we'll talk a little?
Oh, you are a handsome devil, but I don't swing that way, sorry.
Now, in the early days of Supernatural, I do think that putting Dean in somewhat queer situations was being played for a laugh in many cases.
You are really gonna get it tonight, big boy. There's been a misunderstanding. I think I've been had. Oh, you ain't been had until you've been had by the chief.
But it's hard to tell where. Sometimes it's odd throwaway lines.
Let me tell you something. There are two things that I know for certain. One, Bert and Ernie are gay.
It's just subtle mannerisms. A couple of episodes come to mind where Dean just either ends up with an interesting, embarrassed eyeline or just a blatant lack of shame. The episode that comes to mind with that is Dean checking for the husband's birthmark on his balls. No hesitation.
Huh. Your wife told us about your birthmark there. That's nice. Well, you look great, Cliff. Did you get some work done?
Moving on, there is the subject of Dean's boy crushes. In the course of the show, Dean has been portrayed as having what seem like fan crushes on several guys. I want you to look at Dean in the presence of Gunnar Lawless and compare it to most swooning fans when they meet the cast of Supernatural for an autograph at a convention.
Hi, sir. I saw you standing over here and told my brother that I should come over and say hi. So I came over and, hi.
Gunnar Lawless.
Well, I know. Man, I gotta tell you, I worshipped you growing up.
Thanks. Plan on keeping that hand.
Oh, sorry.
Not to mention it's paralleled immediately with Sam meeting his childhood crush in the same event.
Hey, you're Rio. You used to manage Superbomb Sanchez, right?
That was a long time ago.
Well, yeah, but you look great. Sorry, wrong place. It's just you were my first crush.
You weren't one of those guys that had my poster above his bed, were you?
What? No.
It rides the line on if it's just a flustered in the face of your hero thing or flustered in the face of someone you have a crush on thing. Ness, too.
I gotta tell you, I mean, Untouchables is like one of my most favorite movies ever.
What?
I must have seen that thing like 50 times.
Seen it, but like I'm in the...
Oh, yeah, you don't even know. Oh, you are...
Wait, just slow it down.
Except it was portrayed as an overtly stereotypical romantic crush in Changing Channels.
Oh, boy.
What?
It's him.
Who?
It's him. It's Dr. Sexy.
Doctor?
Doctor.
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 You want to give me one good reason why you defied my direct order to do the experimental face transplant on Mrs. Beale?
One reason? Sure. You're not Dr. Sexy.
You're crazy.
Really? Because I swore part of what makes Dr. Sexy sexy is the fact that he wears cowboy boots, not tennis shoes.
Yeah, you're not a fan.
It's a guilty pleasure.
The writers seem to have some idea of what they're writing about, too, even when putting him, again, in situations a normal person should be able to write off and not get super flustered by.
Special Agent Bolin.
Really? Wow. I thought you were like a headhunter or something.
This is the second, maybe third time I'm seeing you today. Why are you following me, Gingerbread?
Oh, so we didn't have a thing back there, huh?
Back where, what now?
I'm sorry, man. I thought we had a thing back at the quad, you know, a little eye magic moment. I saw you here, and I figured I'd wait until you were done with your meeting, and then maybe we might,
Yeah, okay. But no. No moment. It's a federal investigation.
Is that supposed to make you less interesting? You know, I'm sorry, man. I hope I didn't freak you out or anything.
No. I'm not freaked out. It's just, federal thing. Okay, citizen. As you were.
You have a good night.
You have a... Okay.
Just listen to the writer's commentary.
Good.
Jim. He
Jared,
did amazing in this.
He was so funny in this.
Yeah.
That whole like close up where he pulls the wallet back. That was something he did, and that we caught with the camera.
Yeah.
It was so much fun to shoot that because he played it so right down the middle. You know, just more awkward about it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, wow, somebody likes me.
Well, that's the weird thing is that it reads in this weird way where it does feel like Dean's a little bit like, it's almost like a romantic comedy kind of fluster, which is very interesting for the character Dean, like, because it just sort of suggests this weird, this potential.
Potential for
Aaron
love
and Dean,
in all places.
they could come together. He's had a rough life. He's a hard character.
Yes.
To settle down with. But anyway.
Which makes me question what is and isn't written intentionally, and what is written for laughs.
Well, the two very hot co-captains of the women's volleyball team agree that the rabbi's death was very unnatural. I think we still got a case.
That would explain why I have something stuck to my shoe.
You being followed? Yeah, I think so. It's weird. I thought I was being followed earlier. Turned out to be a gay thing.
What?
Nothing.
When you guys started to follow up on his case, we started following you.
So wait, what you're saying is that you and me, we didn't have a moment?
No, man. I was tailing you.
Told you I was being followed. He was my gay thing. It was really good. You really had me there. It's very smooth.
Moving backwards a second.
So whatever floats the guy's boat, that's what they look like?
Yeah, you see, sirens can read minds. They see what you want most, and they can kind of, like, cloak themselves, you know, like an illusion.
Many people like to point at sex and violence for evidence of Dean's bisexuality. In a magazine interview, Jim Perrick, who was the siren, did actually admit that it was put in that he was controlling the boys in a sexual way. There certainly feels like there is something to a creature who is literally entirely shown to be about sexual attraction for their own amusement coming on to Dean. They have some interesting moments, nerding out about classic rock together and only passively watching the strippers all around them. This comes on the heels of Dean admitting to Sam how psyched he was to finally be on a case involving strippers, and he seemingly couldn't really care less. But we do end up with the "he wanted a brother" line, and Dean and Sam were on the outs, so it's giving me enough mixed signals that I'm hesitant to put it in the yay category. Instead, I'd like to point to Sam's reaction. Up until the siren explains and infects Sam, the two brothers were under the assumption that most likely the siren infects the host by having sex with them. When Sam finds Dean under the siren spell, he doesn't even blink, which, I don't know, feels significant to me. Later in the series, we have an interesting moment when we first meet Charlie and she has to distract the guard. She establishes quickly that she can't distract the guard because she's not attracted to men, so Dean is left to walk her through it. It's an interesting way of writing it.
What you're gonna do is you're gonna walk right up to him and you're gonna flirt your way past.
I can't. He's not my type.
You're gonna have to play through that.
As in, he's not a girl.
Oh.
It would have been easy to say, I'm not good at flirting with men who aren't nerds. She's already bringing up her Comic-Con tattoo. This opens it up to Dean telling her how to flirt by saying things he'd want to hear. Not that those are particular things I think Dean would be wooed by. But no, it was, I can't flirt with him because I'm not interested in men. Okay, well let me walk you through it.
Can I help you, miss?
Hey, Bill. Charlie from IT.
Oh, burning the midnight oil, huh?
Just like you. I mean, when you're not at the gym, what do you, work out with all your free time?
I try to get to the gym at least 3 days a week. Just trying to get back to my fighting weight, you know.
That shows. You look amazing.
You look amazing.
This never happened. Do you ever do anything else with your free time? Like take a girl out for a drink?
You do anything else with your free time? Like take a girl
Stop
out for a
laughing,
drink?
Sammy.
Charlie later asks Dean if he recently suffered a breakup, and he gets flustered about Benny.
Yeah, well, now he's more committed than ever, so there's that. I mean, trust me, in this life, you can't afford attachments. You just gotta let go.
Are we still talking about Sam, or did you break up with someone too?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Another character, let's look at Dean's time rolling with Crowley. It was played for a trope, Dean and Crowley in a relationship, and just ambiguous enough that it could be one-sided, but I've never just casually walked around with my dick out around friends. They're scripted romantically, whether or not it was for a joke, and they continue to sort of hint at that rejected lover trope for years. And canonically, Dean has been implicated in 2 different 5-ways, with 3 implied girls and another guy.
Okay, see, the deal was, we howled at the moon. No timestamp, no expiration date.
We've howled. We've paid. We've done extraordinary things to triplets, all of which have been massively entertaining. I will treasure our Flickr albums forever.
Okay, 1, 3 bottles of Jaeger is nobody's friend. And B, they were twins.
No. Whoa, no. They were not twins. They were triplets. And we split them up fair and square.
That's right.
Which, I'll leave it up to you if sex with another dude in the mix is somewhat queer or not, as opinions on this vary. A few things that are often pointed to that I am somewhat skeptical or dismissive of: body language moments, lighting in scenes, ass slaps, odd reactions to character comments.
Why's it always gotta be me that makes the call, huh? It's not like Cash lives in my ass. The dude's busy. Cash, get out of my ass.
I was never in your...
And I'm also not going to go into possible characters that Dean was maybe based off of who were, or occasionally were viewed as bisexual, or that far into questionably queer references.
So what, I'm Thelma and you're Louise and we're just gonna hold hands and sail off this cliff together?
Or scenes that may or may not have a vibe that could also be explained in a hetero light.
Gracias.
Give me your cash. Now, right now.
Let's open the Abercrombie rejects.
College kids. Slumming it.
What are we talking about? This is a nice joint. Huh? You got those custom urinal pucks?
Come on, bitches. Who's next? $20 a game. $20.
By myself, then.
Yo! You know what? You're awesome.
Thanks. You too, I guess.
Tell me. Did they get to 5th base?
There's no such thing as 5th base.
Oh, you poor, sheltered boy. Anyway.
But then, of course, let's touch on the infamous cut scripts. In Goodbye Stranger, Dean was scripted to tell Cass, "I love you." In Red Meat, Billy tells Dean that she thought one of his possible deaths was autoerotic asphyxiation while watching Scott Baio. And a call sheet explicitly calls Benny and Dean's split a breakup specifically, which, of course, it was already paired with Sam breaking up with Amelia, so the groundwork was there. Although I will, full disclosure, admit that I never personally got any Dean-Benny vibes, but it would be negligent of me to not at least mention it. All of these things add up over time. Regardless, Dean has quite the journey from visibly uncomfortable in the presence of queer men.
Oh. Well, it must be nice to get out of your parents' basement, make some friends.
We're more than friends. We're partners.
Oh. Well. Howdy, partners.
Howdy.
I personally think a moment of revelation was watching Dwight and Rod fall in love in Sacrifice, especially because they defy stereotypes. Neither is effeminate. They both could easily be any straight man in every bar and roadhouse he's ever been to, and yet they so easily fall for each other, and he is somewhat dumbfounded.
Kale? Rod?
Ma'am?
Rod rides a stool here most days.
I'll be seeing you both. Thanks for the help.
Problem.
Damn, that's sweet.
How about the next one's on me?
and eventually it evolves. He has a moment where he is flustered when Jesse and Cesar say that they are married, but soon after he is casually asking Cesar what it is like to be married to another hunter.
Oh, you guys fight just like brothers. Almost as bad as us.
Well, it's more like an old married couple.
Oh. Okay. What's it like settling down with a hunter?
Smelly, dirty. Boys are worrying about getting ganked.
In my opinion, there is more than enough evidence that points to the fact that Dean is bisexual. And there is enough over the course of the show that it seems unlikely to me that the writers didn't know what they were doing when they wrote him that way. I do want to follow that up with a little bit of a gripe. I am acknowledging that there is a difference in queer people making jokes and actual opinions, but I do see some people crossing the line. Comments about Dean dressing up or enjoying the feel of silk underwear being evidence that he is queer in some way, if said genuinely, is toxic as fuck. Straight men should not have their sexualities questioned by enjoying certain clothes, a certain style, or basically anything. And saying that if a man enjoys these things, it's evidence they are queer only feeds the rift and encourages toxic masculinity. And even more importantly, it only hurts queer men by perpetuating myths that their identity is tied directly to these stereotypes. It feeds into a narrative that disagrees with the idea that gay people are just people and have the same fucking range of personalities as everyone else. Sorry for sounding harsh, this really gets under my skin. On the same and opposite vein, straight people who can't see Dean as bi because he doesn't act gay at all are misunderstanding that acting gay is just a homophobic stereotype, confusing the idea that queer men are girly, so everyone needs to cool it. Well, that's pretty much all I got. But wait, you may be thinking, Bob, you insufferable buffoon, you missed this excessively talked about obvious sign of his bisexuality. Well, I'd say, if it's talked about at length and I didn't mention it here, I most likely don't think it's a sign of his bisexuality. I think a lot of shit on the internet is a far-reaching stretch. The show is plenty gay without a stretch. But wait, you continue. Bob, you clueless fool. What about this other less talked about but still super-duper clear evidence? Ah, I would continue, you may be right, but I have no idea what that evidence is since we're not having this conversation in real time. So, maybe. By which I mean, this show had 15 years of content. I absolutely didn't catch every scrap of bisexual evidence there is, and at the end of the day, it doesn't actually matter. These characters are yours. You know what's important to their story because they belong to you. And no one can fuck that up. Is Dean hiding a boner, looking up Cass? Was Dean secretly wishing to get Ash alone? Who knows? You make those calls for yourself. I've said my piece. In conclusion, it's a perfectly valid opinion to read Dean as bisexual in this series. I do, for sure. And I do think that a lot of people who don't read Dean as bisexual are the people who think that gay tropes are a funny joke meant to be played for a laugh, which isn't great. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Try to restrain yourself from being a dick in the comments section. Videos where I talk about anything LGBTQ seem to be the videos I get the most flagged for review comments on, and it's always goddamn gay slurs. Behave yourselves, don't feed trolls, and remember, if you love Dean and hate homos, you don't love Dean.
So you can save me the speech on the 3 hearts, the 2 spleens, the 7 nipples for the ladies. Or the fellas. I don't judge.
I'll see y'all in the next video.